Alright, so Glenn Beck held his little Reclaim Honor rally this weekend. And it was decidedly less partisan than some of the Tea Party rallies, and indeed some of what Beck covers on his show, but a little bit of chocolate shake. I think my problem with Glenn Beck, and indeed people who watch his show and take him seriously, is that, you know, I almost adhere to a standard whereby I judge you based on, or I take you seriously based on your craziest acts. That I have a hard time taking Glenn Beck seriously on anything because of a lot of the stuff that he does. You know, calling Barack Obama a racist, saying that he's a deep-seated hatred of white people, using chalkboards to explain crazy ideas to other adults. There are a bunch of reasons why Glenn Beck is so out there. And indeed, I've really come to realize my problem with Glenn Beck and people who support him and espouse similar positions are that they're exaggerating things to make a point, or maybe they actually believe them, who knows, beyond any shred of credibility. Saying that Barack Obama is a socialist is not true. As a democratic socialist, I can assure you he's not a socialist. The socialists among us in the left wanted him to create a Medicare for all health care plan. And that's not what he did. He mandated people buy private insurance, and then, you know, kind of mandated that insurance companies, you know, could no longer discriminate or drop people when they get sick. So really what he did amounted more to increasing insurance regulations and then telling everybody they had to buy plans. One example of kind of him not being a socialist is that the plan that is going into effect, it's almost like a high-risk pool. People have been denied for previous medical conditions and who have been denied for insurance coverage are going into like this new plan, and 2,400 people have been admitted. And I think the statistics I read was that this plan, as far as coverage guidelines, could and would cover like 10 million people, but the application process, and they're not planning on expanding it. The funding isn't there for them to cover everybody who needs coverage under, you know, previous medical condition exclusion. So when people, you know, it's really convenient, and I know it's tempting to boil down political positions to the core, and, you know, saying that Barack Obama's a socialist sounds catchy. The problem is that there are people out there who really believe that, and I don't have to take those people seriously. If you can't articulate your position, because I think when you articulate the position of what people think, or why people think Barack Obama is a socialist, really he's raised taxes on the top, you know, 5%, significantly, and, you know, it's like, we weren't calling, well, some people were calling Bill Clinton a socialist, but really it's been sort of a swing back to where we were before George Bush, and it's manifested itself in a completely different fashion. And I think, you know, we can look and see what liberals were doing when George Bush went into power, and there was groaning, and no, I don't think he was the most articulate president ever, and I don't agree with his, you know, war policies and his real activation and boosting of the, you know, military-industrial complex. But, you know, I don't think he was, you know, the spawn of Satan, or some illegitimate king trying to take over the country. We just had philosophical differences, and I was able to, and I still am able to articulate those. But the point of the matter is that going into the primaries, just both sides, and it's sad that we only have two sides, really. There are Democrats and Republicans, and there are independents, there are third-party candidates, but they're not really winning races. They're not really governing. We've not really had, at least in modern history, any sort of third-party governance or, independent movement swell. But just be informed, ratchet down the crazy, ratchet up the intelligence and the introspection, and think before you talk, because a lot of, especially people in the media like Glenn Beck and Bill O'Reilly, there was a responsibility there. You are a private citizen, but you're also seen by millions of Americans every day. And so when you say Barack Obama is a socialist, and he's destroying this country, you're saying that because of corporate interest, and you're selling something. Glenn Beck and Bill O'Reilly are selling something. They're selling ad space. They're selling advertising. So don't forget that. This isn't something they're doing out of the goodness of their heart. Sometimes I think they believe they're doing the right thing for this country. But they are businessmen. They are running a business. They are part of a business. They've got shareholders and a board to answer to. But when they say stuff, they're doing it to get a reaction. Glenn Beck doesn't get good ratings because he goes on air and spouts a bunch of facts. He gets good ratings and a lot of followers because he's provocative and he speaks to a certain subset of the population. So take that with a grain of salt whenever you're watching anybody, whether it's Rachel Maddow, Keith Olbermann, Bill O'Reilly, Laura Ingraham, any cable pundit is selling you something. I just happen to believe that some of what Fox sells is a little bit more extreme. And we don't really have a left version of Glenn Beck. I think probably the two most left people in mainstream cable news are Keith Olbermann and Rachel Maddow. The primetime MSNBC hosts. But they're really more akin to a Bill O'Reilly, and usually they're a more factually based than Bill O'Reilly. There are definite opinion pieces. It is heavily left. I'm not gonna try to bury that, but they are much closer to O'Reilly than to Beck. There's not really a Beck version on the left, like a crazy leftist who's drawing diagrams and removing letters to make paranoia fit and shilling gold. But anyways, so think, ratchet down the crazy, ratchet up the thought process, and then maybe think, and then vote, and then have opinions. Talk to you guys later.